Since the involvement of NASCAR superstars Dale Earnhardt Jr., Kevin Harvick, Jeff Burton, and Justin Marks, the notoriety of the Cars Tour and its competitors has skyrocketed. The racing speaks for itself because it's true, grassroots, hard-nosed late model racing at its best. And we're here to bring that action to light. This is On Tour. Welcome back to On Tour. My name is Buddy Pulley, joined of course by FrontStretch.com's lead late model reporter, Chase Folsom, or of course we know him on this show as Chuck. Chuck, this is the biggest late model race of the year, the Martinsville 300. Just talk a little bit about, just to get us started, about the importance of the 300 at Martinsville.
Well, I have to start by telling you, my great grandma found the show, and I was informed to tell you that she says my name is not Chuck, and you need to stop calling me that because she doesn't like it. Anyway, Martinsville, yes, Martinsville's awesome. Obviously, we've been to Martinsville plenty of times, but seeing late models go around that racetrack was a very surreal experience. It's like, whoa, we took this racetrack that I once enjoyed going to NASCAR races at, that now nobody enjoys going to NASCAR races at, and we put an even better product on it. Like, it was weird. Me and Matt Weaver were talking about it. It was weird to see cars pass each other at Martinsville. um, but yeah, it's take Daytona and make it late model stock cars, dude. That's
Yeah.
maybe not in how it races, but in what it means. Those guys, like, their entire year is revolving around whether or not they can go at least compete for and be competitive enough to win a grandfather clock. That's all they care about. And I kind of learned that really quickly because from a first timer being there, I would have thought that the Triple Crown would have been a bigger deal. It was like even the guys involved in it, they had one thing on their mind and one thing on. They didn't care. So it just kind of speaks volumes as to how important this race is to these teams. I mean, we had 80 cars on the property. That's
Yeah.
bonkers. So it was a really cool experience for sure.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Virginia Triple Crown. We'll talk a little bit more about it there, but yeah, I mean, Peyton Sellers won the Triple Crown, but I mean, we front stretch talked to him after the race, and it was the furthest thing from the front of his mind. All he was thinking about was just a rather disappointing run for him in the 300. Yeah, I mean, you see, like you said, 80 cars show up and you see, the guys we talk about every week, the Carson Kvapils, the
Yeah.
Connor Halls, Trayton Lapsevich, and then you see guys that, we haven't talked about all year, Mike Looney, and, Peyton Sellers obviously is a late model legend. There's so many guys. This, like you said, it's the premier late model race of, you know, the year. And Connor Hall said it best. He's like, this is our Super Bowl. And, obviously we equate that to the Daytona 500. And it's just you see names that, if you don't follow late model stock racing, religiously, that you might not have ever heard of, but turns out they're pretty damn good drivers, all of these guys. If you make the Martinsville 300 field, you're pretty damn good, pretty damn good late model racer. I'll just put it like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Chuck, talk a little bit about the all the pre 200 lapper festivities, all the heat races, which are notoriously we'll say exciting.
Yeah, so we didn't get a full Martinsville experience this time around. Obviously,
Yeah,
Hurricane Helene had a say in that, and I'll circle back to that at the very end of the show.
yeah,
Um, but Friday washed out, and rightfully so. Nobody needed to be traveling in that weather.
yeah,
So they pushed everything to Saturday morning. So they had a single practice Saturday morning for all the teams, and then single car qualifying. So all 80 cars took time, and that sets the field for 425 lap heats. And then, the top four start first in a heat, 5 through 8 start second in a heat, so
mm,
on. And how the heats finish, you win heat three, you start third.
yeah,
So that's just an example. You can kind of math it out from there.
Yeah.
The first heat was relatively calm. I mean, there was some guys moving each other at the back. Your typical back of a heat at Martinsville, beating and banging. I got a really good series of pictures from turn 3 of Landon S. Huffman. There's just his hood laying in the racetrack, and then the safety crew picking up the hood, and then him going by with no hood on while the safety crew was carrying it, and then a shot of the car with the hood taped back on. Great series of photos. I might have to share that one.
Yeah.
But other than that, it was Kyle Dudley drove away. If I'm not mistaken, he's a Franklin County regular. So Franklin County doesn't get talked about that much. And if you don't follow Franklin County, you might not know all that much about Kyle Dudley, but he comes and runs the 300 every year, and he had a really fast car to start out. Heat 2 was that one that you're always looking for. Which one's going to be the mess? That was Heat 2. We had somebody missing a shift. We had Chase Burrow blew up in front of, I can't even remember who it was now. For the life of me, I can't remember, but he blew a motor in front of somebody. That was big.
Yeah.
And looked really bad. And Buddy Isles Jr. and Carson Kvapil had a hell of a battle for the last 10 laps. I thought Buddy was going to hook him coming to the white. It for a second, because I was standing on the exit of 4 taking pictures, and I see him go down the front, and Buddy like clips him, and I was like, oh, that was almost really bad. Carson said he was like turning like dead left.
Yeah.
But Carson wins that one. Heat 3 was kind of a chaos as well. Kind of had 3 cars up there with a shot: Peyton Sellers, Mike Looney, Cade Brown. Sellers won the heat, but I think that was the point in the night when we knew Mike Looney had one of the cars to beat, because he was running down Peyton Sellers. And Mike Looney's no stranger to Martinsville. He knows how to get around the place. But even a guy that has a grandfather clock like Mike Looney, it's crazy to see somebody run down Peyton Sellers like he was. Sellers won that one, and then Heat 4, we saw Lee Pulliam running at the front. Shout out to Lee for being back in the race car. Him and Connor Hall had a good battle. Connor put him in the wall off 2, and then again off 4. I don't know that he meant to, but he did.
It's
he might have, considering the source, it might have been intentional.
Yeah, but, that's something that's not all too unfamiliar.
Connor might have eaten too many hot dogs and forgotten where his edges were.
I think it's more or less the 03 and the 22 back at it again.
Well, I'm just referring to the fact that somebody trusts their metabolism enough to eat 50 hot dogs in a day. Connor Hall. So yeah, Connor Hall won that one, and the hot dog eating competition as well. And that set the stage for the 200 lapper at the end of the night.
All right. Yeah. It's an awful lot of hot dogs being ate by a guy who wouldn't trust the bologna burger at South Boston, but that's a discussion for another day. As you said, that did set the field for the 200 lap feature. Let's take a look at the results from the Valley Star Credit Union 300 at Martinsville.
Taking a look at the results of the 2024 edition of the Valley Star Credit Union 300, it was Carson Kvapil who picked up his first career grandfather clock, just ahead of the guy who won it in 2016, and Mike Looney, and in his first ever Martinsville attempt, Trayton Lapsevich comes home 3rd in the 300. Florence Motor Speedway track champion Casey Kelly was 4th, with Bobby McCarty in 5th. Jake Crum came home an impressive 6th, with Brent Cruz in his first attempt in 7th. An impressive run for Ronnie Bassett Jr. in 8th. Triple Crown winner Peyton Sellers was 9th, and Sam Yarborough rounded out the top 10. A strong run for Andrew Grady in 11th. Aaron Donnelly was 12th. Lee Pulliam in his return to racing came home 13th, with Jared Fryer in 14th and Ryan Millington 15th. Doug Barnes Jr. was 16th, with Clay Jones 17th, Camden Gully 18th. Ryan Matthews, after a bump and run to race his way into the 300, came home 19th, and Dylan Harville was 20th. Daniel Silvestri was 21st after a strong run early. Dexter Knight Jr. was 22nd. Blake Stallings was 23rd, with Tristan McKee in 24th. After mechanical troubles, Connor Hall was 25th. Landon Templeton was 26th. After being in position to win late, Cade Brown was caught up in an accident and was 27th, with Connor Jones 28th, Stacy Purrier 29th, and Buddy Isles Jr. 30th. Defending Martinsville winner Trevor Ward had trouble and was down in 31st with Mason Diaz in 32nd, Timothy Peters in 33rd, Jacob Hefner in 34th, Parker Eatman in 35th, Carter Langley in 36th, Matt Waltz in 37th, pole sitter Kyle Dudley crashed out early, he was 38th, Stuart Cruz was 39th, and Jason York was 40th.
As you saw there, Carson Kvapil, no surprise to I think anyone, he scores the victory at Martinsville, and if you listen to his interview later, you could hear the emotion in his voice, and it really from a guy as calm, cool, and collective as Carson Kvapil is, to see the emotion that we saw out of him after winning this race speaks volumes.
Yeah. He keeps to himself. He doesn't express his emotions that much unless you're talking about Metallica. Um, he's just very reserved. Like you don't get much out of him. He doesn't give you much when he wins. He doesn't give you much when he loses. So it was really cool to see him just express how much that race means to everyone. And I think all week long, I think we all, I don't know if you share this sentiment, but I had a feeling going into this race that for some reason it was Carson Kvapil's race to lose.
Yeah,
Like
he's been
it
on.
just
Yeah,
had this feeling like it was his time. He's only run it twice, but to run second and third, and he's not like your everyday late model guy. We know he's going places. We obviously know officially now we can
yeah.
say he's going places. Um,
Places being Junior Motorsports
Junior
at full
Motorsports
time.
in the Xfinity series, right?
Yes.
Um, but I think we all kind of knew it was his last 300 for a long time.
Yeah.
And it was now or never.
Mhm.
And they had the car to beat, and he executed on every single restart. He held off Mike Looney for so long in that race. It was very well deserved. I couldn't think of a guy in the field with what their future holds that deserved that race more than him.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's something to be said too. I mean, he's not obviously not running for the Cars Tour Championship anymore ever since he started running Xfinity. Um, and I think, I mean, that probably allowed them to focus a lot more on the 300. Obviously, we've seen him have, strong runs in the past, but not be able to close it out. Now, I mean, as soon as the Cars Tour Championship was out the window, he's been a different driver. He's been on kill. I mean, we saw at South Boston, and I mean, it was I kind of I to answer your question, yes, I felt the same sentiment. I felt it was his race to lose once they showed up.
Yeah, and I think, you look at Carson's career, right?
Mhm.
He's won 2 Cars Tour championships in a late model stock car. He's won
Yeah,
an old North State Nationals. He won the return to North Wilkesboro. Like
yeah,
nobody can ever say that other than him.
yeah,
He's won a South Boston 200. Well, crossed the line first and won. Like he's done everything there is to do in a late model stock
yeah,
car other than this race that he just won in the South Carolina 400.
yeah.
And not to knock the South Carolina 400, but it's not Martinsville. Like
No,
this was the one that he had left. And
no.
the 400 might be second on that list for a lot of people, but nothing compares to Martinsville. And it just kind of, I know it's not done. He's got a couple more races the rest of the year, but it's kind of like a storybook ending to what
Absolutely.
has been a fantastic ride for him in a late model stock car. And he's going to go do big things elsewhere.
Yeah.
And I just hope that, when he has the chance, he circles back around to the little guys and comes back to his roots.
Yeah, and if you guys really, I mean, obviously they announced he was, taking over the one car for JRM. He was on the Dale Jr. download this week, and it was really cool to hear Travis talk a lot about Carson's work ethic and just how proud he is just of who he's become as a man, much less a racing driver, and he's a pretty damn good one of those too. Obviously the second Martinsville clock for JRM. Josh Berry won back in 2019. But I don't think Josh Berry had to chug down some pickle juice during the red flag. But that's what That's what sets Carson Kvapil apart from the rest of them. Let's talk, or let's hear from the Martinsville 300 winner and the future driver of the one car for JRM, Carson Kvapil.
It's awesome. I mean, obviously this is a crown jewel, late model stock racing. Everybody, 75, 80 people came this year to try to win that clock, and that's obviously the most car count out of any race we get out of the year, and it's just such a big deal. This race is so prestigious. It's been going on for so long that so many great racers have won it, and to be able to add my name to that list is it hasn't sunk in yet, but it's awesome. I can't thank all my crew enough. Brian Schaefer, all the guys that are wrenching on it week in and week out, and just can't thank Johnny Morris Bass Pro Shops Chevrolet enough for the opportunity to run the car.
So as you mentioned before, Carson beat out Mike Looney to win the biggest late model stock race in the country. Chuck, who is Mike Looney for those who don't know? Because he is one of these guys that, if you don't follow this show, or if you follow this show, you might not know, or if you don't pay a huge amount of attention to late model stock racing, you might not know. But he's no stranger to Martinsville, obviously winning the 300 back in 2016. So just give us a little backstory on Mike Looney.
He is one of your good old boy late model stock car drivers that just so happened to also be in the same era as Peyton Sellers, Lee Pulliam, and Philip Morris.
Mm-hmm.
He's as accomplished as they come. Franklin County, South Boston. He's won so many races at both. If I'm not mistaken, I think he's got a couple track championships. See, with us covering the 300, there were some guys that I had to learn about too, and Mike was one of them. I mean, I knew he had a clock back in 2016, like you mentioned, but I didn't know the extent of how successful his career has been, and it has been an incredible one. And it was nice to see one of the old guys get after it at the front with these new guys. And there was points on Saturday night where he had the best car.
Yeah.
And the cautions just didn't fall his way. He got around Carson at one point. I think it was right before halfway.
Yeah.
And then there was a quick yellow after halfway, and after that quick yellow, he gave up the lead, and Carson never really looked back from there. So, he mentioned to Michael Massey, front stretch coworker of mine, that he felt like he got out crew chiefed by JRM. And the weird thing is, they said that the JRM guys said they didn't change much.
Yeah.
So it's almost if you're Mike Looney, do you sit back and you think to yourself, man, I faked myself out. Like I thought that they would, it's almost like he thought they were struggling in certain places and tried to counter what they were trying to counter him.
Yeah.
And he overthought it. And for a guy like Mike, he's got plenty of years left, but he's not 21 years old like Carson Kvapil. Yeah. When those opportunities get away at this stage in his career, they start to hurt a little more, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm sure this is going to be one that he's going to think about for a while, probably longer than if he was 25 or something. But at the same time, for a guy, he didn't win a single race all year at South Boston. Ran second a gazillion times.
Yeah.
So, there was nobody in the field that had more drive and determination to win Martinsville than Mike Looney. And he just came up short. So to have that speed in that race, he's got to take a lot of positives away from it.
Yeah, absolutely. He was someone who I had frankly never heard of before this weekend. And I took the time to try to learn a little bit more about Mike, because I saw the interview after the race, and he exactly what you said, just one of the good old boys. And it's cool to see. And that right there, Mike Looney is exact example of what makes the 300 so special. I mentioned it before. You see these guys that that are track champions and consistent weekly stars at these tracks all across the Southeast, and they all come to Martinsville and make this event what it is. So obviously Mike finished second. That's a tough loss for him. We did talk to Mike after the race. Here's what he had to say.
We just turn. We freed up at the break, but we just didn't free up enough. The car was really good first half, and you kind of question whether your judgment on how much to do. But we swung at it. We knew we were going to need to, but just wasn't enough. Congrats to Kvapil, Brian, and all that team. They done a great job, run a flawless race. They deserve wins. But all in all, good night for Billy Martin Racing.
So you guys heard there from Mike Looney. Upon further review, which is really hard to do on Google because there's not much out there on Mike Looney, but he does have a Motor Mile track championship. I know he has raced at Franklin County in the past, and he does currently race at South Boston, but a Motor Mile track championship for sure. Virginia State Championship, which means a lot considering the racetracks in the state of Virginia. Yeah. It's still one of the most accomplished of his generation.
Yeah, absolutely. Another one who is pretty accomplished of his own generation is Connor Hall. Although the Martinsville 300 did not go very well for him. Obviously, Nelson Motorsports finished second there with Landon Huffman in that epic duel at the end. Another tough night for Nelson. Another tough 300 for Connor Hall. Chuck, tell us about Connor's night.
They were really, really fast, and then they weren't. He might have had the best car there. I'm not saying he would have won the race.
He didn't want to say it, but he sure alluded to it.
He didn't want to say it, but he really wanted to, but he didn't. He might have had the best car there. They were so fast. They had such good entry speed, center off, like everything you could ask a late model to do through 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 at Martinsville. They nailed it on the 22 car. And they had a plug wire loose, and he started dropping back. And I'm not saying this made his night any better or worse, or that he would have finished any better than he did, but Tristan McKee did absolutely run him over off turn 4 that caused that big pile up.
Yeah, he did.
I'm just going to call it how I think we all saw it. That was bonehead, and that comes with experience for Tristan. Because that was not bright.
I'm gonna have to press X to agree with that on that one.
Yeah, and that junked quite a few cars, so I'm sure
did.
he had some apologies to make post race. But then I can't remember exactly what Connor said. I think it was a fuel pump or fuel pickup,
it was
something like that.
It was.
Either way, it was a ticking time bomb. It wasn't gonna last. They had to fix the car, and after they fixed it, they were multiple laps down, running extremely competitive lap times, but it didn't matter because they were multiple laps down. It's just another missed opportunity for this team, man.
Yeah. I mean, he, obviously he was, I mentioned earlier, he called it the Super Bowl of late model stock racing. And I mean, this is a guy who, now he's just, since we last recorded, won his second straight, NASCAR weekly national title. Like, I mean, he is, like we just talked about Mike Looney being one of the guys of his generation. He is one of the guys up there with Carson Kvapil of late model stock racing in today's world. And, the 300 win is obviously, almost bigger than all of it. So he did allude to coming back next year. We are not a news breaking show, but I think Chuck and I both have a small idea of where he might end up next year, and he might have a pretty good shot at getting that 300. We did talk to Connor Hall, and he elaborates more on his night and how disappointing that was. So let's hear what Connor had to say.
This is a Super Bowl, right? Everybody wants to go to the Super Bowl. So no matter how dejected I can be now or angry or whatever, like, I'm going to come back and like honestly, like, I'm going to come back and I'm going to hopefully win next year. Like, that's like, I come here literally just to win a clock, and that's like, that is it. Like, I want to win a grandfather clock from Martinsville Speedway. Probably worse than any other racing accomplishment I've ever achieved or not yet achieved. So I think coming back's not the issue. Having a car that can replicate what we had tonight as far as chassis wise, I think that's gonna, that's pretty difficult. So just was not our night, but happy for Carson. He's been close too, so hopefully this is an indicator that you just got to be a little bit patient and your card will be pulled.
Yeah, I don't know if any of you guys pay that much attention to detail, but gray hats look nice on some people. Anyway, buddy, what's the next topic?
Yeah, I like patches on drivers' arms. I think they look good too, especially covered up. The Virginia Triple Crown. Moving on. Something Connor Hall lost this week. He came in. I believe he was the points leader in the Virginia Triple Crown. To recap, i.e., it is the South Boston 200 and Hampton Heat. And then Martinsville is obviously the third leg of it. Connor Hall came in as the leader. He obviously had his troubles. Then Cade Brown was in position there for a little bit. And then Jake Crum himself decided that wasn't going to happen. I also have some, frankly, some rather blunt comments about that. This is not the first time that family has made some moves that I would deem questionable. Crum goes into turn 3, absolutely out of control, about wrecks Cade, saves it, then tries to hook Cade, and then that that attempt to hook Cade is what ended up ending Cade's day inadvertently, when he ended up in a crash with what was it? Who was it? Dudley and Kyle Dudley and somebody else. I can't remember exactly.
It was Donnelly and I can't remember
Donnelly, thank
who it
you.
was. Donnelly, we saw forget Air Doug, which Doug Barnes did make the race, but we saw Air Donnelly at 10-1 and 2.
That's true. Yeah, it was Aaron Dunn. Okay, yeah, sorry. But yeah, I just I didn't like that move. I'll just leave it at that. I didn't think that was. I thought that was pretty bush league in my opinion of Mr. Crum. But it all culminated in Peyton Sellers winning his 5th Triple Crown. Chuck, we like I said, we talked to him. He didn't seem to really want to celebrate in the moment. But what is? I mean, obviously Peyton Sellers is Peyton Sellers. So talk about that here.
Yeah, I mean Peyton Sellers at this point, he's won 5 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5. And it
5th
goes
means
back
5.
to Did you say 5th?
I did say
I didn't even
5th.
hear you say it. I ain't even gonna lie.
Yeah.
I heard you talking. I didn't hear you say 5th.
This is the show, guys.
This is the show. This
Yeah.
is the guy he has on the show with him.
Yeah.
No, he is at this point the king of Virginia and will be until anybody steps up and stops him. Because it's not like he goes out there and dominates these 3 races. He's just the perfect model of consistency.
Yeah.
That's what he's always been. And he ran top 3 at Sobo,
Yeah.
top 3 at Langley, or top 5 at Sobo, top 3 at Langley. What are you gonna do? As soon as Connor Hall has trouble, you're gonna have a hard time beating him because I couldn't believe he ran as bad as he did. Honestly, he couldn't either. That's why he was as mad as he was.
Yeah.
So it's going to be hard for anybody to take him off this throne because I think it goes back to the first one was in 2011, 12, but they didn't run it in 16 because Langley shut down for a year, and they didn't run it in 20 because of COVID. So going back to 13 when he won his first one, that's 5 and 11 years, but you take out 2 of them. So that's 5 and 9 years. That's impressive. Honestly, they were really disappointing though at Martinsville. He was really fast early and then they just got really tight. And I mean, you could tell they didn't care about the Triple Crown. They wanted to win Martinsville. And I'm sure sitting back and looking at it now, he's happy, but in the moment, he didn't really care all that much. Cade Brown, though, I do want to give him a shout out because they've had a really up and down year. They've showed speed, had a lot of mechanical failures. He's gotten taken out in a lot of messes that aren't his. They showed up on raw speed, had a chance to win in Martinsville. He drove to third and had a couple of restarts played out in his favor. He could have won the race. I think at the end of the race, he was probably better than Mike Looney. Had we got a long green flag run, he may have run down Carson Kvapil. So shout out to Cade. His time is coming. You got to lose some of these races, especially at Martinsville, before you win them. Nobody knows that better than the guy that won. So he'll get his.
Yeah. And that's, a good way to close out the Triple Crown discussion. You wanted to give another shout out to our old buddy Andrew Grady. Till he became the first Grady to make the Martinsville 300. Talk about Andrew and his night.
So you can always count on Andrew Grady for a great interview.
Yeah.
He's a character. He had a quote of the month, not quite quote of the year because all those happen at Hickory, but he had a quote of the month candidate for sure that we'll play for you guys here in a second. He had a really persevering night. Like he started 38th on the field, I want to say.
He started last.
Was it 40th?
Oh, no,
it wasn't 40th. Brian Matthews was 40th. So I think he was like 38th. He goes a lap down early. He fights back, gets that lap back. The crush panel is knocked out of the car, so he's getting carbon monoxide poisoning.
That thing called a crush panel.
That thing, there's a little thing called a crush panel.
Yeah.
They put a hose in the car, and he fights back all the way to 11th. He was at the end of the race. Yeah. In a field of 80 cars, he went out there and ran 11th. That's a fantastic night. On a regular night, 11th it's nothing to write home about, but at Martinsville, that's a big deal. So it was cool to see someone like him go out there and have a good run.
Like I said before, you could tell how much it meant to him just to be the first Grady to make the 300 after his dad made those attempts and failed to make it. And his dad was a damn good late model driver as well. Let's get a word, or let's hear from Andrew Grady, and then we'll get a word from frontstretch.com.
Biggest thing was these damn kids, man. We were in the show, and this, I don't even know the kid's name. God bless him. He didn't mean to do it. He just run out of talent. We're going down the straightaway, and he turned right. I don't know, maybe he's trying to miss a pothole. I don't know what the hell he was doing. But it knocked the toe out like an inch and a half, bit the ball joint, bit the spindle, and there's something called a crush panel that's in between the fender and us. Keeps fumes out. Well, that was gone. So all night long, I was battling the fumes. And honestly, I'm going to be honest with you, shout out to Hunter Courtney, because if Hunter had not have got me a brake duct hose to put in there to keep the air moving, I would not have finished this race. When we stopped back there under that red flag, man, I was in bad shape. I was in bad shape, but nothing a cold adult beverage can't take care of.
Frontstretch.com is where you'll find all your racing content in one place for free. They have it all from NASCAR to F1 to IndyCar, grassroots racing, and even iRacing. Front Stretch has you covered with daily news for every series, weekly columns, and even on-site coverage at every NASCAR and Cars Tour event. Head over to frontstretch.com, subscribe to their YouTube page, and give them a follow on X to get your daily fix on all things motorsports.
As always, big shout out to frontstretch.com for allowing us to use the content that I get for them on this show. If you want to see more grassroots racing content, you can go to Front Stretch Grassroots on YouTube. If you want to see any NASCAR or IndyCar, we have YouTube channels for that as well, Front Stretch Open Wheel and the original Front Stretch channel. And all of the written content can be found at frontstretch.com. In fact, we haven't mentioned anything much about Lee Pulliam. That's because I did a little bit of an extended interview with him after the race on Saturday night. That will actually come out the day after you guys see this. So be sure to check Front Stretch on Friday to hear an extended breakdown of Lee Pulliam's night from the man himself at Martinsville.
Yeah, as always, thank you to Front Stretch for what you guys do for this show. Now let's talk about one of Front Stretch's reporters and what they can do for the local hot dog market. Chuck, how many hot dogs did you eat at Martinsville?
So you're gonna be mad at me. I only ate 2.
You got Connor Hall on record saying he'd eat 50 in a day, and Big Chase Chungus Chuck didn't excuse my language, didn't eat but 2.
That's why Big Chase Chungus Chuck is trying to not be Big Chase Chungus anymore.
Okay.
Going to the gym and on a diet. That's why I only had 2. Oh, I lied. I had 3. I had 4. I forgot about the ones I had in the media center.
Hey, you better hurry.
Count?
Yeah, it counts. You better hurry up. We only got a couple things left in this show, and that count's got to get up higher than 4.
I swear it was only 4. It was only 4, and some mac and cheese. That was some really good mac and cheese.
The truth comes out, folks. Okay, all right.
I only remember the 2 from the concession stand. I'm sorry.
All right. Now that we got that out of the way, now your question of the week for me.
So my question of the week for Buddy, since you put me on the spot here, and I forgot to do this. Who wins Martinsville next year?
Who wins Martinsville next year?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would hope he'd after what he told me at South Boston, he'd be smart enough not to eat 50 hot dogs before the race. But I think Connor Hall is gonna have. I think he's gonna have all the pieces to winning the 300 next year. So I'm gonna go with Connor Hall.
I'm gonna go redemption for Mike Looney.
All right. That's really all we had. What a race! What's up?
I got one more thing.
Yes, sir.
I got to mention something about this.
Okay.
If you guys have made it this far, and especially for our
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
down under folk that may not know exactly what's going on over here in our home state of North Carolina, we got hit pretty bad by Hurricane Helene. Maybe not me and Buddy specifically, but the entire western region of our state, as well as South Carolina, Eastern Tennessee, Georgia, Florida. So everybody in the Southeast, me personally having so many ties and connections to that area, between family and college and vacations and everything else, it's been really hard for me to see, honestly. It was hard to beat Martinsville on Saturday, I won't lie.
Yeah.
So if you guys are in the area and would like to donate, there's so many racing programs going on right now. Joe Gibbs Racing is donating. Junior Motorsports in the Car Store just wrapped theirs up, but North Wilkesboro Speedway is accepting donations. Martinsville, Bristol, Charlotte, the list goes on and on and on. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is selling shirts for charity. Samaritan's Purse is always a good charity that you can donate. They have multiple locations set up in the mountains helping out in North Carolina. So, and if you guys aren't able to help out, just send your thoughts and prayers our way, because everybody up here is going to need them. It's going to be a long road to recovery for such a beautiful place, and it's a shame to see.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of them tough deals. You hate to see it, and it's one of those things. It's unavoidable, but what is in your control is your ability to help your neighbor. So definitely, if you can, do that. But yeah, with that said, that's all we had. The Martinsville 300, the biggest late model stock race of the year. I'm gonna keep saying it. Please, if you take nothing else from this show, go either get you a Flow subscription and watch the race next year, or if you're in the area, make the trek to Martinsville. It's a beautiful drive up there, and it's a beautiful racetrack. It is as down home as a racetrack can get, and you're going to see some damn good late model stock racing. So, with that, as always, support your local short tracks, and we'll see you after the Car Store race at Tri-County.